This is Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a Seven Mountains Media production, your daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball, featuring interviews with special guests. Now here is your host, Mr. Steve Jones.
Great to be with you. Did you buy that shirt? Or?
I did buy this shirt, I'll have you know. It is quite a nice shirt.
Actually, it is very nice, yes.
Yeah. It's a little bit like a golf shirt in terms of like the thinness of it. Less of a polo, more of a nice, like thin, athletic wear golf shirt. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't golf. Couldn't tell.
Oh, no, you could play golf. I bet you'd be pretty good at it.
Got a baseball swing, as they would say.
Yeah. Well, you talk to baseball players who play golf, they say they'll tell you they do have to make changes to play. John Smoltz will tell you that. And Smoltz is a really, by all accounts, an excellent golfer. So let's get to money first.
What a topic.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start with money? Because there's a few directions to go here.
Okay, well, we'll start with money wagered.
I'm guessing it relates to golf, if I may be guessing here.
Yeah, that would be Phil.
Phil Mickelson. It was
wagered over $1 billion as he tried to bet on Ryder Cup, according to a book. He bet more than $1 billion on football, basketball, and baseball over the last 3 decades and allegedly attempted to place a $400,000 wager on Team USA in the 2012 Ryder Cup in which he participated, according to an upcoming book by a renowned professional gambler. And this is the guy that's been the thorn in his side when it comes to the gambling part in terms of revealing it, Billy Walters. Excerpts of the book Gambler: Secrets from a Life of Risk. Forward written by Jerry Valeri. No, I'm just kidding. No. Jerry wakes up every day. It's a gamble. Were first reported on Thursday by Fire Pit Collective. I have no idea who any of these people are anymore.
No clue. I do know who Billy Walters is.
Walters, I do know.
He's the very famous.
I'm talking about Fire Pit Collective. Yes. I have no idea who these people are.
They're the Fire Pit Collective.
Yeah. And provide the most detailed look yet at Mickelson's sports gambling and his relationship with Walters, a Las Vegas businessman who was widely considered to be the most successful American bettor ever. Okay. Citing betting records and 2 reliable sources, Walters writes, from 2010 to 14, Mickelson made 858 bets of $220,000 and 1,115 bets of $110,000.
By the way, would you like to know the numbers on that? So from 2010 to 2014, if he made that many bets, that means he made from 2010, 11, 12, 13, and 14, which would be technically 5 years worth.
Yeah.
The overall number we have here is just under 2,000 bets.
All right.
So that means he made over a bet a day, right. 395 bets a year.
Right, and he does this like in practice rounds. In practice rounds all the time, they're playing like not for a lot, but they'll kid around and play for money.
Yeah.
Right, and he's the one that is the ringleader of that all the time. Everybody knows that one. I mean, but it's like it's just a couple dollars here and there, whatever. But he still feels like the need for some sort of action, evidently.
Apparently,
it says Mickelson bet more than $1 billion over 3 decades. The plus-minus ledger was minus $100 million, so he lost $100 million.
Ow.
The only person I know who surpassed that kind of volume, Walters writes, is me. According to the book excerpts, in September 2012, Mickelson called Walters from Medina Country Club during the 39th Ryder Cup and asked Walters to place a $400,000 wager for him on the U.S. team to win. Walters responded by scolding Mickelson, "Have you lost your blanking mind? Don't you remember what happened to Pete Rose? You're seen as the modern-day Arnold Palmer. You'll risk all of that for this? I want no part of it." And again, because you're betting on your team Now, like Rose bet on his team to win. All right? And if I hear over and over again, the people that have defended Rose to me have said, well, he bet on his team to win. Well, you're the manager. And I've said this 1,000 times to people as a response. I said, I understand where you're coming from, but understand this. I have Kyle left. Okay, so Kyle's over here. He's my ace reliever. I've used him 3 days in a row. I need, and he needs, me to hold him out today because I not only have to manage the situation, manage the game, I also have to manage the week, and I have to manage the month, and I have to manage the season. It's all rolled into the decisions you make on a particular day. Unfortunately for Kyle, who's pitched 3 straight days in stressful situations, I put money on today's game, and it's a 1-run game in the 9th inning. I need to throw him again today. Well, what am I potentially doing to damage Kyle's career here? Because I have money on it. When it becomes, it's already personal to begin with. You don't think it's personal to James Franklin, September 2nd at 7:30 at night, how personal it is for him? Right? Now you add in the element of, I've got money on it, which is now the Pete Rose situation. It's not only personal to him, I'm the manager of the Reds. Now I've got money on it. Right? And so now he wants to do this, and he's a participant. And and then there's the possibility you're putting pressure on other people who don't know you have money on it. They already have enough pressure to begin with. They reached out to Mickelson for comment. Oddly enough, he did not comment.
So surprised.
Yes,
You're shell-shocked, Steve. Yeah. I can see it on your face.
Walters wrote, Phil liked to gamble as much as anyone I've ever met. Frankly, given Phil's annual income and net worth at the time, I had no problems with his betting, and I still don't. Because, look, Mickelson's making a ton of money.
Oh, yeah.
Right? He's a big-time gambler, and big-time gamblers make big bets. It's his money and to spend how he wants. Now, privately, I would like to know, just privately, I'd like to know how Amy Mickelson feels about this. I mean, it's her life, too. I mean, with the kids, but still. But he's made so much money, he's not wanting. And
he just got his, $200 million deal with Liv when that happened. So, there's a whole discussion here. And, of course, I don't think we'll find the exact full details ever.
Right, I know.
This is just what we're going to get because Phil's probably never going to speak on it. Or if he does, it'll be so in a way that does not tell us as much as we like to hear.
Here's where Walters draws the line with Mickelson. Walters said Phil Mickelson's one of the most famous people in the world and a man I once considered a friend. He refused to tell a simple truth that he shared with the FBI and could have kept me out of prison. I told him I never told him I had inside information about stocks, and he knows it. All Phil had to do was publicly say it, and he refused. Well, here comes the book.
Yep.
So
we love a good book telling details of lives.
Yeah. Next, we'll stick with money.
Mo money, mo problems, as they say.
Yeah. Okay. Pete Thamel and Andre Adelson, two terrific reporters. ACC presidents met last night to talk about Cal, Stanford, and maybe even SMU. It hit significant roadblocks.
Why would that be?
No vote taken. Yeah, we'll get to that in a moment. No vote taken. Conversations about expansion among league presidents are expected to continue as they wrestle with the best way to position the league in the future. It is a league obviously staring at a gigantic financial gap, but this is a gap, Kyle. I mean, we started working together in January, but I can go back 3-4 years explaining, and not just on a show, I mean multiple shows a year, explaining that the Big Ten and the SEC are here, ACC, Big 12, and Pac, whatever the number is this week, here, right? And the gap's just getting bigger. And I talked about this over and over again, that this is the way it is played out. And the way it's played out, sorry, it's not an equal world. It's not an equal world. If I am sitting there, let's leave Oregon and Washington out for a moment because they have nothing to do with the current contract the Big Ten has. Zero. Okay? But if I'm sitting there and I have one group negotiating a contract with Penn State, USC, Ohio State, Michigan, now add in important others, but I've got those 4 brands, and I'm sitting there in the SEC, and I'm negotiating a contract with Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma, LSU, Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, whatever, right? And then I'm negotiating a contract with Clemson, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Pitt, Syracuse, Boston College. Well, who are you going to go to? Okay, which way are you going? If I'm sitting there and I'm negotiating a contract with Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, Baylor, who are you going to watch? Now you add in Washington and Oregon. I was talking with Toby Rowland, the play-by-play voice of Oklahoma today. We were talking about this. I said Penn State started the realignment surge in 1990. I said, in your school, Oklahoma, I said, kept it going, right? And said, and changed the landscape forever along with Texas. And he agreed with that. He says, yeah, that's right. Penn State did. He says, yeah, you're right about us. I said, yeah. And we were just talking, right? But everybody's trying to find a safe haven here. Stanford and Cal, I guess the story goes that Notre Dame, which is in every ACC sanctioned sport except for football.
And that's the interesting piece of this.
Right. Exactly. Is the one that was pushing the vote, especially on Stanford. Okay.
So the fact that they're pushing this but are not involved football-wise with the ACC is just like okay, we see that, but I think the ACC is saying if we're adding them, you better join us for football.
Well, the key to all this is, and this is what one source ended up saying, right? It's a numbers game. Number of league members, the source said. And this is the key part. They don't bring enough value. I have said this over and over again. Every time I hear the Stanford Cal thing, I'm sorry, they don't do it.
They bring academics.
Okay? I've always said the big chip in the game, and there's one left, and that's Notre Dame. All right? Oregon and Washington are significant chips. But the big chip, I mean, like USC.
The blue chip prospect.
Right? USC, big chip. Texas, big chip. Oklahoma, big chip. Notre Dame, big chip. Those are the big chips in the game. Okay? The next level of big chips would include Oregon, Washington, Florida State, Clemson. Let's give them their props, okay, for the most part. But that's it. That's just not the way it goes. There's nobody else out there. You're sitting there like going, hey, if you're the Big Ten, right, you're not getting Notre Dame because they want to be independent. Okay. Well, guess what? Oregon and Washington, that's as I said to Toby today, I said, Toby, it's a long-term play. I said, when they come up with the next contract, they've got from Seattle to San Diego, right, as part of their long-term play on media contracts. I said to go with everything from New York to Minneapolis. and everything in between, including Chicago. I said DC, Philly. I said, so they've got all that, and for any, brands in college mean more than territory, but don't discount territory because guess what? That's where population is, and that's where, hey, guess what? Big Ten brands resonate in Chicago, which has 3 million people. I said, well, it's like, okay, great. So that's why markets still come into play. But they don't bring enough value to the table. And not only that, you can question how hard. I mean, it's not as if Wilcox isn't trying hard. Troy Taylor is having, believe it or not, a really good recruiting year for Stanford. Really good, to his credit. But people are questioning the athletic department commitments at both those universities. And they're also questioning the fan base commitment. Tony Coccatrone, who's the voice of Washington, he and I were talking, and he said, we had a big game, Steve, at Stanford. He said, we're all excited. This lot on the line. He said, they had 10,000 people there. 10,000 people? Maybe at the beginning of the game. I guess a few more came in. He said, at the beginning of the game, there were 10,000 people at opening kickoff. We're looking at each other like, really? You got to be, and please don't sit there and go, they have to give everybody the San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose market. It's like, okay, here's the level of caring in the San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose market. The 49ers, the Giants. Okay, well, actually, it might be the Warriors, the 49ers, the Giants, the Sharks. Okay, where does Stanford fit into that?
Not high.
Or Cal? No, they don't. I mean, the game? I don't even know if the game sells out. I don't even know if it sells out. And now we get to the next part on the money trail. Oh, at some point we're going to talk about games. Please.
Games don't exist, Steve.
Please tell me we're going to start talking about games.
We're less than a month away. All right. It'll be okay.
So, and believe me, in the Big Ten, there was some resistance from athletic directors about going to 18. Like, hey, look, let's make 16 work first. This almost, but the presidents were the ones that said, no, let's just get this done. All right? And they're both AAU members. And they obviously, look, they bring terrific competitive football teams of the Big Ten once they get around to it. And then in talking to Tony, you could hear the excitement in his voice about doing this. So what remains of the PAC, pick your number today's conference?
PAC 3?
Because they went into Friday morning's meeting. And this is what Robbins, the president of Arizona, said. We were expecting to sign the grant of rights in blood that morning. By Friday night, they were Big 12 members.
I remember we did the show. We said, this is happening today. Real cool, interesting. And then middle of the day, just exploded.
Well, right before the show, we heard that the meeting didn't go well. So that's why the show was about, hey, look, we kind of outlined it. Hey, last night they met. You're expecting to wake up this morning, and it's done. It's a done deal. Arizona's gone. Let's see if the others go with them. And then the story that morning was different. We woke up that day, and the Pac-12 might survive. And then about an hour before the show, maybe about a half hour before the show, that's when we found out, like, uh-oh. Because, again, the key to the entire breakup, no question, was as soon as they saw the numbers and the methodology of the TV deal and saw that they were falling further behind, that's when everybody looked around and said, where is my lifeboat? Okay? If the numbers had been comparable, even within 2 million, So 29.7 of the Big 12, I think it would have been good enough. I mean, I'm talking about guaranteed money, no escalators or anything like that. Guaranteed money. There would have been no realignment. But when they looked at it and they saw the 23, they're like, okay, I think the second meeting they were expecting to see, okay, by the way, it looks like we're on line for a linear partner too. It's not going to be a lot, but we're going to make sure we get on linear. And it's not there. And again, TV networks make their own decisions. What do? Right? They're a business. ESPN's a business. So the Disney numbers came out, okay? And as expected, and like they always do, ESPN makes money. But here's the issue. They are part of a larger corporate structure. Not all parts of Disney are making money. So because not all parts of Disney are making money, it's great that ESPN's making money, but there are other divisions in the company that are not. And not only that, the Disney stock is now down 55%. They were up around 200 a share before. They're now 87 today. Big problem. Because ESPN, as part of the corporate structure, there's Disney money that has to go to them to pay for rights fees. All right? And so they've been far more selective and cost-conscious as to what they've done. So they looked at the Pac-12, and I keep talking about must-have, nice-to-have. It was like, okay, it'd be nice to have it. Right? But on our terms. It's not as if ESPN has not lost bids because they wouldn't go far enough. Right? And it's happened all the time. They have made bids for the Olympics. Have not been able to get the Olympics. Right? Kind of capped a ceiling as to where they're going to go. I don't even remember what the number was. But they were like, we really don't want to go past this. All right, guess what? You didn't win the bid, but it was a smart financial play on your part. You didn't sit there and go, hey, at all costs, we need to have this. ESPN doesn't usually do that. And that's one of the reasons why they have had success. They've been able to get properties for the All Sports Network, but when it comes to certain things, they have not overpaid for it. And now they're in a spot where they're in a company that is trying to get its financial footing, because Disney Plus is just financially down the road. Is Disney Plus going to be great? It has a chance to be. But right now, they hemorrhage money from it. Everybody in streaming except for maybe Netflix and Hulu.
Hulu also a Disney property.
Right, but they make money, right?
Mm-hmm.
They make some money. Disney Plus gets crushed.
Well, it was announced yesterday.
Right.
Changes coming with Hulu going up $4, I believe, Disney Plus going up $3 or $4, and they're going to attempt to crack down on password sharing. You can no longer share it with like third parties, but no one really knows if that means you can't share it between households or whatever. We don't know. So there is a very strong chance that they do what Netflix did and rebound big time because of crackdowns in that regard.
What? Rebound from what? They've been losing money left and right. Okay.
Rebound from the low they're in.
I mean, what was the number? Was it $600 million they've lost on it or something like that in the past
I
year?
believe it was between 5 and 600 million, somewhere in there.
Again. By the way, it's again. That's not like a one-time loss. It's like that's been about the average loss since they've done this. Well, can you keep hemorrhaging that money? This is why anybody who wants to mandate we're going to do this now or by 2030 or 2032 on something is an idiot. I mean, complete idiot. You always have to gradually transition to something. That's the smart way to do it, right? And trying to make people go all in on something when they're looking, going, well, I don't want to go in all in. That's not what I'm used to doing. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, let's give the NFL, why are they a successful business? because they looked at the current landscape, dipped their toe into the future landscape, while having the vast majority of what they do fit the current landscape. So they dipped their toe into Amazon, Thursday Night Football. And even that did not meet the expectations. They were looking at $12 million per game as an average. They ended up with 9.7, which, by the way, is excellent, but not the projection they had. And that's the National Football League. So with Disney Plus losing, right, they need ESPN to keep making money. But ESPN, to their credit, the vast majority of contracts they take on, they've been outbid for Premier League soccer. They have been outbid for the Olympics, and they've been outbid repeatedly for the NCAA tournament over the years. Now the tournament, this last contract, such a long-term contract, but they have bid on the NCAA men's tournament, and they get to a ceiling, and they don't want to go past their ceiling, and I give them credit for that. They understand what must-have properties are. The Olympics are not a must-have property.
Right? A nice property.
Oh no, it's only because it's so expensive. I mean, it works out great for NBC. They win the ratings in February, which is a sweeps month. The Summer Olympics are not in a sweeps month. The Summer Olympics do not take place in a sweeps month. Now, you get a lot of advertising. It's great, corporate partners, so forth. But in terms of the ratings, November, February, and May are the sweeps months when it comes to television. Well, the Winter Olympics, believe it or not, the Summer Olympics are more valuable in terms of number of people watching, but in terms of like winning the ratings,
the spectacle,
right? Winning the ratings in February, they win when they have it. Even the Beijing thing, despite being way down, was still higher than anybody else. Okay, but the Olympics, so they lose out on that. But now they're looking at everyday properties. They pay $2.7 billion for the NFL, which, by the way, part of that is the exclusive rights to have all the highlights to use any way they wish for all the shows they have. And that's about $400 million of it or something like that, which was the same as the other contract. But that also means that they kicked it up 50% from their previous contract to carry essentially, for all intents and purposes, one game a week. But you have to have it, and they'll get a Super Bowl out of it. They need the NBA. Okay? The NBA Wednesday and Friday doubleheaders are in terms of ratings.
Mm-hmm.
But you get to the playoffs, which extend 2 months and include the finals. Right? You're paying $1.4 billion a year for that. Well, guess what? The network that's currently paying $2.7 billion to the NFL per year might have to pay $3.5 to $4 billion a year to retain the rights.
Yep.
And again, you're sitting in a boardroom and you're looking around saying, okay, should we do it? And every hand's going to go up. It's an incredibly valuable property. College football playoff. Right? At minimum, it's going to double. At minimum, it could triple what they're paying, what's being paid now. Now, the idea is, like with the NBA, they share playoffs with TNT. They may have to share, especially the opening 2 rounds. They may have to share the opening round and the quarterfinals. But the prize is to get the semifinals and the final. Right? And again, you're going to have to bid high for that.
Real high.
Well, then after that, you're looking around saying, do I need the Pac whatever? And the Pac whatever may not be an A5 anymore unless we get to the next part of this, which is, what do you do if there's a merger between the Mountain West and the Pac-4? What if Oregon State, Washington State, Stanford, Cal merge with the current Mountain West with the idea that the Mountain West would no longer be called the Mountain West. They would be called the Pac whatever. And now you've got New Mexico, Wyoming, Colorado State, Boise State, San Diego State, Fresno State, Nevada, Reno, UNLV. How am I doing? Am I getting most of the teams?
You're getting them.
Yeah, I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
All right. To go with these other four that are in there, Hawaii is a football member only. San Jose State.
Yeah. San Diego State right now must be just waving, like being like, whoof, we dodged a bullet.
Well, San Diego State was waiting for the phone call on Friday. They were going to make the move.
Mm-hmm.
And then when this whole thing fell apart.
And it fell apart because Colorado left. That's the craziest thing to say out loud is that.
Well, no, it didn't fall apart because Colorado left.
They were the first domino.
It fell apart because when they were finally presented with the deal, okay, it's Colorado leaving, like, oh, they left and there's the House of Cards. The House of Cards was the TV deal. Again, if the TV deal even got within a couple of million of the Big 12, where they felt like they were competing, and say, for example, say it's the same deal except you start out at a base of 29.7 instead of 23, I think they would have signed it because the escalators could have maybe pushed them past whatever to get to 5 million subscribers from 1.7 million subscribers. Okay, fine. But that's when it all fell apart. It all fell apart when they finally saw the TV deal. Like, Colorado left before they saw the TV deal. They left it like the rumors weren't good, and they're like, the heck with this. We got to get out of here. Okay. The other ones didn't get out till they actually saw it and went, son of a gun. Wow. Now, the Arizona State people loved it.
Oh, yeah.
The Arizona State people looked at the TV deal and they go, hey, we're really intrigued by this. Okay. There's some possibilities with this, so forth. But when they're hearing rumblings from everybody else that the number's 23, and that's a base number, and that if you get to 5 million subscribers, which is going to be difficult to do because it's based on your product, you're not going to get there.
Nope.
So the college football playoff has to reassess now, where does all of this stand? Do they still have A5 status, automatic bid status, to the college football playoff? Also, do they have automatic bid status to the NCAA men's basketball tournament? Okay.
It's going to get real screwy real fast.
So if you merge, it would have to be done contractually in a different way so that it's considered a merger between the two. It's an absorption, name change. I mean, I don't think you keep it as the Mountain West.
No.
Name change and so forth. So all those Mountain West schools, instead of having the Mountain West schools applied to the Pac-4, that's a $32 million exit fee for each one. So you do it in such a way where there's no exit fee for anybody and just come together. Now, whether that can happen or not, I don't know.
So what you're saying is you don't know if you're the biggest fan of the Pac-16 featuring Air Force in Wyoming?
That wouldn't bother me. No, it's interesting because I talk about, I watched a lot of Pac-12 football over the years, but I also have watched a lot of Mountain West football because, again, when I get home from especially a road trip, that's what's on. Right? That's what's on when I'm watching. So have I watched a couple Colorado State games? Sure. Have I watched a couple San Diego State games? Sure. Have I watched some Boise games? Sure. I mean, I like watching football, and guess what? I mean, is it the greatest football on the planet? No, but it's good football. They play good football out there. Air Force plays good football out there. And that's something to at least think about. The dalliance with the ACC and Stanford and Cal, it comes down to they don't bring enough value to the table. And I know there are a lot of people out there. The academic part is unquestioned. Right? And I know people say, well, look what they do in the Olympic sports. The TV people don't care what they do in the Olympic sports. You want to know why? They don't carry the Olympic sports. Now, would it give maybe some more value, for example, to the ACC network, which is owned and operated by ESPN? ESPN owns and operates it. This is where it comes down to what I said the other day about people are saying it's actually ESPN that owns the grant of rights in the ACC. They do not. I think people are getting confused about who owns what. Okay, so let me ask, do you think that ESPN owns the grant of rights in the Southeastern Conference?
No.
Of course not. Their arrangement of the Southeastern Conference is exactly the same as it is with the ACC. ESPN owns and operates the SEC network. And ESPN owns and operates the ACC network. The conferences are the ones that retain the rights to their broadcast material. The check goes from Bristol to Greensboro. The check goes from Bristol to Birmingham. Okay? That's how it goes. Okay? That doesn't go the other way around.
It should get lost in transit and end up in State College. I wouldn't be mad about that.
Those checks come in from Rosemont. Okay. Right? But they're the ones that have their own rights. That's where the grant of rights with the conference. It's not with the network. I think that's where people are getting confused about who owns what rights. ESPN, like exactly the same as the SEC network. The SEC network is owned and operated by ESPN in partnership with the SEC to carry as many, and they put football in there. They put basketball in there, just like BTN does. All right? ACC network, same story. Okay, owned and operated by ESPN, but the material comes from the ACC. Big Ten Network, Big Ten owns 39% of BTN. Fox now owns 61%. Okay. Does anybody think that the Big Ten doesn't own its own media rights?
They own them.
Yeah.
They would never get rid of them.
Right.
If they did, they'd make billions of dollars.
And I think that's where the confusion's coming in about who owns what rights, because this big thing is coming up, next Tuesday?
Yeah.
With, what's Florida State going to do? And, there'll be thousands of cameras camped outside of Tallahassee. Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of the confusion also comes into play because there's just so many schools moving.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's there's only one happening. It's this year and next year. There's just so many moving pieces.
Yeah.
And there's all the rumors of could they be going here or there or where are they going? And that's adding to the confusion.
So is there anybody the ACC could add, since you were a Syracuse grad, and so this is directly affecting your fandom,
as you can see by my shirt? Yes.
But would you like them to stay pat, or is there anybody you'd like to add?
You already know what my answer is going to be. There's one addition that makes sense because, again, as we've stated today, they already play every other sport in the conference, and that is Notre Dame.
Right.
That is the only one, to me, as a Syracuse person, that makes at least a little bit of sense because they're already in every other sport. There's one last sport to add. I think also if you add Notre Dame in, it solidifies the conference, because then I think Florida State's and the Clemsons aren't going to want to leave if they've got Notre Dame in there as well.
For one thing, if Notre Dame were to go full-time, which I don't think they will, if they were to go in for football, ESPN then does have to renegotiate the contract.
Yeah. And that would be gigantic.
And that then changes everything if they did it.
But if they were to do that, that would, I think, it would calm the storm. It would get rid of any issues and say, okay, we're good now. Like if we're adding someone, you're adding in the blue chip talent that I think there is no other school you'd want to add if you're the ACC for football. Because if you're talking about other sports, basketball wise, it's a whole boatload. I'd want UConn or whatever. But purely from a standpoint of what do we need to add?
Right.
it is only Notre Dame.
Right, because they're the only big chip left in the game.
You start and end with South Bend, and there is no other addition. Would Cal and Stanford be fun to have, especially as a former member of the Student Broadcasting Union of talent there? Would that be fun to be able to go on the university's dime to Stanford to go broadcast in Palo Alto?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be mad at that. That'd be quite enjoyable.
Sure.
But Jay-Z said there's 99 problems. The 99 answers here are Notre Dame for all of them. None of them are Stanford and Cal. And that's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
It's a sad truth that these schools, I think, thought a lot higher of their value. And now their value is the four of them combined going somewhere else.
Right.
Which is going to be the Mountain West, because that one makes sense. But I have a question for you. So let's assume the Pac-12 merges with the Midwest. Let's assume
the Mountain West.
The Mountain West. Yep. Let's assume the quote-unquote big conferences are the ACC, the SEC, the Big 10, and Big 12.
Sure.
Let's say those conferences stay the same. None of those people leave.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any schools outside of that are at least interesting to add?
No.
That's the thing. This is just a consolidation of power is what it's happening.
See, that's what I've talked about the Big 12. All right. So the Big 12, which now will have 16 members. Mm-hmm. We'll see if they want to expand more. We'll find out. I give them, as I've said to you, A+ for survival.
Big A+ on survival.
I mean, it looked like 2 years ago they were dead in the water and they were going to be the ones that broke up. A+ survival. Okay? TV deal. A+.
Mm-hmm.
They jumped the line. They were not the next that was supposed to negotiate. It was supposed to be the Pac-12. Then it was going to be the Big 12. They jumped the line. Brett Yormark, to his credit, got the deal done with ESPN and Fox. Got him $31.7 per plus clauses in the contract. They gave any new members the same number.
Mm-hmm. Which is huge.
Right? Which is not what the networks want to do. But they got ESPN and Fox to agree to it. Okay. But they still get a C- for membership.
Mm-hmm.
Which members, you're in the SEC and you're in the Big 10, which members from the Big 12 do you want? Right? I mean, really want. I mean, do you want Iowa State? Right? I mean, that the recent ads from the Pac-12, like Utah, Arizona State. Right? But again,
maybe Baylor. That's the Baylor, Arizona. Yeah. Arizona's probably the big name there.
Right, but I'm saying, but who do you want?
Yeah, not great.
There's nobody you want. The SEC is not sitting there going, "Oh, damn, we lost Arizona."
But I even go.
They're like sitting there going, "Oh, darn, The Big Ten's not sitting there going, "Oh, yeah, we could have Colorado."
But my issue is I even go down from there. I say, what if you're the Big 12 and those schools do leave and you're like, I want someone new? Who do you go get? Do you go get
nobody?
You've got what?
Kansas,
SMU sitting in the American.
And again, you can't sit there and you cannot play the game of, but they're great in volleyball. The networks don't carry volleyball. They're looking around going,
even basketball. Even like you'd hope basketball is a bigger decider, but it's just not.
Basketball is not a big decider, right? Nobody loves basketball around here more than I do, but I'm smart enough to know what drives the bus.
That's the thing, because if we're talking, it's football and basketball that matter, the ACC is sitting in a prime position where they're like, we're set basketball-wise. No one can touch us. But
the Big 12
doesn't matter.
The Big 12 is a great basketball conference.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're going to have Kansas. They're going to have Baylor. They're going to have Arizona. Right? I mean, you name it. They're going to be tremendous.
Houston's been great. Kansas State's been great. Like a lot of schools. ACC.
Houston's a Final Four possibility. Yeah. Kansas is a Final Four possibility. Baylor has won a national title. Kansas won it. I mean, their basketball's great, and basketball though makes money.
Mm-hmm.
But they make excellent supplemental money.
Yes.
The key is They don't call. Okay, they're in the black.
Mm-hmm.
NCAA tournament, TV, so forth. They're in the black, and they provide a lot of content.
Oh yeah.
Okay, as I tell everybody, like, well, Penn State basketball. Well, guess what? Which sport's on TV more than anybody else here?
Mm-hmm.
They had 37 games last year. 34 of them were televised.
If all is even, and say you're trying to add one school, but there's two schools there, School A and School B are even football-wise, basketball would be a decider there.
Right.
That if School A has better basketball than B.
UConn.
Yeah. If it's UConn versus a Georgetown, I'll take UConn.
Right, of course. Right.
That's because Georgetown sucks, but whatever.
Yeah. Sounds kind of personal.
It's a little bit personal.
By the way, your buddies at Lemoyne in Syracuse have now gone Division I.
They have.
Their opening game, first ever as Division I, is Georgetown.
It is. Because as any real Syracuse fan knows, Georgetown still sucks. I was there watching that game in 2019, I believe, when Tyus Battle hit a game winner over Georgetown. I've never seen a game winner before. So that did a lot for me.
30,000?
It was 30-something. The Georgetown game was a sellout. There's only so many games that sell out.
32, 33,000.
It's the games that sell out are Georgetown and Duke and sometimes UNC or Virginia. That's those ones border. But Duke is a sellout and Georgetown gets there because Syracuse fans despise Georgetown fans for understandable reasons, which Georgetown's terrible.
Wow.
Yep. Welcome to the Syracuse fandom. It's great. Thank you. But that's just it's been described as the Wild West for good reason, I think, looking at these conferences. But now with, I guess, I think we can safely say the Pac-12 is done in the form we know it. It's not changing anytime soon. It's going to be merged into the Mountain West, one would assume. Mm-hmm. You're now sitting at the point where there's no one else to add. There's no other conferences to add people from, because at that point you're bringing up, like, at least the schools that have been added in other places, like the Colorados and Arizona States of the world. Yeah. At least they had some value to them. Stanford and UConn, like Stanford's probably the only one left, really, that's got at least, outside of Notre Dame, of course, that has at least a tiny bit.
That's unless Florida State and Clemson become free agents, of course.
But that's the thing. And at that point,
North Carolina, never forget North Carolina.
But at that point, the ACC would then be doomed. Right. So you're sitting here with these four conferences now of a power struggle, and it's gonna, if one of them disappears, if one of these other four goes, I think at that point the explosion button hits on the entire NCAA.
Now, this is where the Colorado part did play a role. When they moved, ESPN, that meant in the contract, the pro rata portion kicked in. And that's when they decided to pull back. Okay. Apple also, they took their original deal at 23, supposedly in the meeting on Friday, kicked it up to 25. But, and I was talking about, we're going to have Tony Knopp on here next week at some point. But I talked, Tony's in Maui right now, and Maui's not the great. He's got to get out of there.
Oh no, he's in Maui, and we're here, and it's rainy outside.
Yeah, but
currently.
they've been having the wildfires in Maui.
Oh yeah,
and in talking to Tony, he says the people at Apple are tough people on the negotiating table, and supposedly Apple had no interest at all in joining Linear Partners as part of the deal.
Wow. That's big.
Yeah, that's big. And that's a big part of this. So there's a lot of things that conspired to make this happen. And what's interesting is that with all the predictions, I've been hearing, and you'll be hearing nothing, okay? Because it all came down to the presentation of the TV deal. Mm-hmm. That's what it came down to. When you finally saw the numbers and went, Okay. It's like doing a basketball game and the final score is 34-33, and you're saying, when does the second half start? These guys are sitting there going, well, where's the rest of it?
You sound like a man with experience, Steve.
I've done those games before. I was kidding Paul Keels about that one time, the Ohio State play-by-play guy. And I had just done a game where the final was 36-33, and he says, Steve, how'd you get through that one? I says, Paul. I said, I've now done a 36-33, a 38-33, and I did a game once with Tennessee where at the end of regulation it was 33-33, and Penn State won in overtime. I said, anybody can do 76-73. So I said, and he's laughing. I said, anybody, Paul, can do that. I said, there's an art to doing this. So you got to come up with 18 different ways of saying no good, because you don't want to be redundant on all the missed shots. But they didn't want one.
Mm-hmm.
And everything, it all came down to, okay, as simple as it sounds, show me the money. Well, when he showed them the money, you had some people going, oh, that's it? Now, some other people were intrigued by, hey, the future is in streaming, blah, blah, blah. Well, the future is maybe in streaming, but that's not the present.
I was going to say, the future doesn't matter.
You need to dip your toe into streaming and then see how much further you want to immerse the foot as time goes, okay? Because that's the smart way of doing business. There's still enough linear carriage out there to carry the day. As time goes, the scale may tip. And I think people are predicting as time goes, the scale will tip. But the scale hasn't tipped yet. It's just kind of like gone down a little bit, and streaming's losing so much money.
Yeah.
Right? Apple's not one of those groups. I mean, they're tough. Not as Tony told me, he says, Steve, they're tough negotiators. Right? And they have no qualms about walking away from a deal. None. Remember, they walked away from the NFL.
Just big.
Right? You're like, okay. So that's who their deal is. They didn't want a linear partner. They didn't want a linear partner. So when they revised it, they're like, okay, so we're 8.7 million behind. Now we're 6.7 million behind. See, that's what it came down to. They're like going. And again, the contract's running out in 11 and a half months.
Not like you have 5 years to decide. You have months to decide now.
Right. Months. You have to have it in place. And that's why everybody that's what caused the breakup in the end. Everybody's looking around saying, okay, we may need a lifeboat. Then they finally said, well, let's just see what the numbers are. And they looked at the numbers and go, oh, boy. Right? So which side of the ship is the lifeboat? Oregon and Washington got the best out of it.
They said, peace, we're out of here.
Right? Can you blame them?
No.
Right? Now, when it comes to Olympic sports, and this is something we'll have to talk about more next week, we're now transitioning from divisions in football to a 1 through eventually 18 model in the Big Ten, 1 through 16 in the SEC. Oh, divisions are bad, blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. All right, so they're bad. You know what needs divisions? Olympic sports. Olympic sports need divisions, and my understanding over the years has been that the coaches in those Olympic sports have resisted it. No, we got to be one big conference. Like, okay, guess what? Why did Oregon and Washington go to the Big Ten? It was their best chance at economic survival. Okay. Why did USC and UCLA, especially in UCLA's case, go to the Big Ten? Long-term economic survival. Right? You have to be forward-thinking enough to say, okay, you know what? What's the smart play here for us in our sport to make sure that we continue to survive and thrive? Okay? Everybody's talking about the travel. Why not in other sports go to a 4-division model in the Big Ten? 2 4-team divisions, 2 5-team divisions. Gee, I wonder which 4 I'd go with in the West.
Yeah.
Right?
You divide within your own region. So even the ACC, divided in half.
Right.
You already got them.
Right. You know, and that doesn't mean you don't have crossovers.
Yeah. But you have
you regionalize what you're doing with them to cut down on expenses, and also at the same time, if people are concerned about length of trips, school, mental health possibilities, okay, you would cut down on that. Doesn't mean you're always playing them, but they're the primary people you play every year. Every year.
It's almost like you go what the NFL has with the AFC, where it's the AFC North, the East, the West, the South, and you play the same teams twice, and then you kind of rotate around after that.
I mean, if you wanted to go with 3 6-team divisions, go with 3 6-team divisions. These are for all, okay? Yeah, excluding football, obviously, men's basketball, women's basketball. And there's some sports you don't have to do it in wrestling.
Soccer.
Right? Soccer you might have to, because all 18 play soccer, men's and women's. It doesn't mean you're always playing this group. Okay, you're always playing that group of other 5 schools. You divide into 3 divisions. It doesn't mean you're not, okay? You're not playing. You're going to play that same 5 every year, and then you're going to play a couple teams from that division there and a couple from that one, just to give the conference feel, right? And then. Okay, and then you figure out a playoff after that where maybe you can bring everybody together or whatever the number happens to be. But that's where divisional play, I think, needs to come into play when you have a conference that stretches from New York to Seattle to Los Angeles. Right? That maybe you go with 3 6-team divisions in the other sports. That way you can regionalize your travel, which can give you cost coverage, and at the same time, it's not as draining on your student athlete. It's not as draining on everybody involved in it. And that doesn't mean you don't, for example, say Penn State's in that East 6. It doesn't mean Penn State doesn't go out and play. Hey, let's go out and play Purdue and Indiana. They're in the Midwest Division. And it doesn't mean you don't, okay, hey, we got the one big California trip this year. Let's go out and play UCLA, and you know, because they're in the other division. Okay, that's fine. You kind of rotate through along the way and do that. But that's where you can, I think, cut costs by, in other sports, regionalizing in the conference of 3 6-team divisions.
But Steve, that's too complicated. It's too complicated. You couldn't sense my sarcasm there. I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But
so we're going to re-air Tony tomorrow? Or?
Someone will be on air tomorrow. I believe Tony will be on tomorrow.
Tony, yeah, well, I'm talking Washington's Tony.
Washington, Tony, yes.
Because he's excited about it.
Well, it's going to be good to have him on.
We got Ross Tucker and Bob Pompiani, so we got some stuff coming up on Friday and Monday.
A lot of things coming, and of course, thanks for tuning in to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a Seven Mountains Media production. Check back daily with all the latest